Ready to unlock some serious spoken English skills? We're diving into a treasure trove of tips today, all geared towards helping you sound more natural and confident.
Because let's face it, grammar books are great,
Totally.
but actually speaking the language
Yeah.
is the real game changer.
It's like the difference between reading about swimming and jumping into the deep end.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where this EFGO blog article, How to Improve Your Spoken English, 8 Tips, comes in.
Okay.
You sent this in, and it's packed with actionable advice.
It really is.
Um,
One thing that jumped out at me right away was the simple but powerful reminder that to get better at speaking, you have to actually, speak.
It seems obvious, but so many learners get caught up in studying and forget to actually put what they're learning into practice.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like anything else.
Right.
Practice makes progress.
right.
The article suggests things like finding a language exchange partner or joining online communities.
Yeah.
Have you seen that work for people?
Absolutely. Creating those opportunities to use English actively, even if it's just for a few minutes each day, can make a huge difference.
It's about building that habit,
Yeah.
making English part of your daily life, not just a subject you study.
Speaking of making it stick, you know what else I thought was brilliant? The article's point about reflecting after a conversation.
Okay.
It's easy to just brush it off and move on, but taking a few minutes to really analyze can be invaluable.
Like hitting rewind.
Yeah.
What went well? Were there any awkward moments? Any words you totally fumbled?
That's like reviewing game footage.
Right.
It helps you pinpoint areas where you did great and areas that might need a bit more work.
Speaking of fumbling, this totally reminds me of a time I tried to impress some colleagues from the UK at a conference. I was feeling pretty good about my English until I completely butchered the word aluminum, trying to say it the American way.
Oh, wow.
It was a mess.
Oh, I can only imagine. We've all been there.
Definitely a learning experience, though, which brings us to the article's point about going beyond just textbook vocabulary.
So important.
Yeah.
Textbooks are great for the foundation, but they often lack the nuances of real-life conversation. You know, the idioms, slang, and natural rhythm you won't find in a textbook.
For sure. Like, you wouldn't learn a phrase like, that's a piece of cake, from a textbook. You pick those up from listening to music, watching movies.
Even eavesdropping on conversations.
Exactly. Speaking of, I recently came across the phrase, Bob's your uncle. Have you heard that one?
Yeah.
It's British, and it basically means, and there you have it, so charming.
Those little quirks are what make language learning so fun.
They're like hidden treasures. And speaking of treasures, the article offers a clever tip for boosting confidence preparing cheat sheets.
Okay.
I know it sounds like studying for a test, but for real-life scenarios.
Oh, okay. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Imagine you're nervous about a doctor's appointment.
Oh.
Jotting down key vocabulary and phrases beforehand can make you feel so much more at ease.
It's like having a safety net.
Right.
And it's not just for language learning. I use cheat sheets for presentations or workshops all the time.
Sure.
Having those prompts helps me stay on track.
Exactly. It removes that mental block of, what if I don't know what to say, and lets you focus on actually communicating.
So helpful. What other situations do you think cheat sheets could be especially useful for someone learning English?
Oh, job interviews, for sure. Ordering at a restaurant, especially if it's a cuisine you're not familiar with. Even making small talk at a party.
Those are all great examples. Now, the article also tackles a fear I think many language learners can relate to: phone conversations.
Ooh, phone calls. They're like the final boss of language learning, aren't they? Even when you feel confident in other situations, phone calls can be nerve-wracking.
Seriously,
Yeah.
what is it about them that makes them so much more challenging?
I think a big part of it is the lack of visual cues. In person, you can rely on body language, facial expressions, even lip reading. But on the phone, it's all about what your ears are picking up.
It's like the difference between watching a movie with subtitles and trying to follow along with just the audio. So much harder.
Right. The article suggests starting small, maybe with phone calls to friends, and gradually working up to more challenging ones, like scheduling appointments. It also mentions strategically using those little filler words.
Filler words, you mean like, all those little sounds we make.
Exactly. Used in moderation, they can actually make you sound more natural.
Yeah.
It's like giving your brain a moment to catch up. Of course, you don't want to overuse them.
Right, nobody wants to sound like a broken record, so it's about finding that balance. Speaking of which, the next tip is a bit daunting: recording your voice. I don't know about you, but I cringe when I hear myself.
Oh, we've all been there.
Mhm.
But think of it like athletes reviewing game footage. It's not always pretty, but it shows you what you need to work on.
That's a great way to look at it. It's about being objective,
Right.
seeing the areas where you can improve, right?
Exactly. You might notice you speak too quickly, mumble certain words, or have a certain intonation that you weren't aware of before.
And once you know, you can start adjusting. The article also suggests sharing recordings with a teacher or a native speaker friend for feedback,
Having an outside perspective is invaluable.
like having a personal coach in your pocket. Now, this next tip is one of my favorites, learning phrases instead of single words.
Ah, yes. That's huge for fluency. We call them formulaic language, collocations, or chunks. Basically, these ready-made phrases become shortcuts to sounding more natural.
It makes so much sense. Like, in our native languages, we don't think word by word, we think in chunks. Do you have any examples of phrases that trip up English learners?
Absolutely. Instead of saying, it makes me angry, try, it drives me crazy. Or instead of, I need to go to the store, try, I'm going to run to the store. Small shifts, big difference.
Run to the store just sounds so much smoother.
Exactly. And the more you immerse yourself in real English movies, music, podcasts like this one, the more you'll naturally pick up on these phrases.
So pay attention to how native speakers talk and try to spot those recurring chunks. It's like a game.
A treasure hunt for fluency.
I love it. And speaking of fun, the article wraps up with a reminder we all need language learning shouldn't be a chore. It should be enjoyable.
So important. When you're having fun, you're engaged, you remember things better, and you're more likely to stick with it.
Plus, it takes the pressure off. The article suggests things like singing along to English songs, trying tongue twisters, which I am terrible at, by the way.
We should give it a try sometime.
Oh, challenge accepted. But seriously, the article also mentions giving impromptu speeches on silly topics.
I love that. It's a fun way to practice without taking yourself too seriously. Imagine giving a speech on the history of the spork.
See, you're getting into it. What other fun activities do you think could help boost someone's confidence in spoken English?
Oh, how about watching stand-up comedy in English? It's a fun way to pick up on humor, cultural references, and those all-important colloquialisms.
So good. Or joining an English language book club or movie night.
Exactly. Find something you enjoy that lets you engage with the language naturally. It shouldn't feel like homework.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect note to transition into our final thought. You know, we always like to leave our listeners with something extra to ponder.
It's true. And all this talk about the mechanics of speaking, the pronunciation, the vocabulary, it reminds me that we can't forget the cultural context.
Right. Language and culture are so intertwined.
Exactly. How we use and interpret language is shaped by our background and experiences. So as you're working on your spoken English, I'd encourage you to also explore the incredible richness of English-speaking cultures around the world.
It's like adding another layer to your learning.
It is. It's about going beyond just what is being said to understanding the why behind it.
That's such a great point. So to all our listeners out there, as you're practicing those tongue twisters and belting out those English karaoke tunes, remember to keep an open mind. Embrace all the different ways English is used around the world. You might just uncover a whole new level of understanding. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep those conversations flowing.